Welcome back. A number of new Colorado laws went into effect yesterday on the first of the month. So 9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor is joining us this morning to break down some of these new state laws. Good morning, Whitney.
Good morning, Drew. Good morning, Colorado.
How about which of these, because there's a lot, we can't go through them all,
Yeah.
but which ones do you feel deserve like the top headline status?
Oh gosh, there's so many, and the legislature passed a number of laws that went into effect this year, but there's a number that went into effect just yesterday, over 20 actually, and so they're dealing with civil rights, consumer protection, AI regulation, a number, so it's a broad range of things, but...
Any one that you said, man, this is going to change the game, and this is really going to be a difference maker for people?
I don't know if there's one that stands out. I mean, the conversion therapy for sure, that's a major one. And I'm actually glad that we're talking about that because the Supreme Court overruled any bans on conversion therapy. And so conversion therapy is when somebody comes in and tries to counsel somebody into a sexual orientation that they're not identifying with. And there's a lot of science that says that's dangerous and it's harmful to the client. And so the Supreme Court said you can't put these bans on conversion therapy. So in response, the legislature passed this law that essentially says you have a cause of action against the therapists themselves if you suffer injury as a result of conversion therapy. And the interesting thing, there's no statute of limitations. So that means you could, years and years later, you could bring this claim and you can get economic, non-economic, and exemplary punitive damages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we must be on the same page because if you didn't bring that one up, I was going to bring up conversion therapy.
Okay.
I'm glad you covered that one. How about a consumer law? Is there like a consumer law in this mix that you feel deserves some attention?
Yeah, there are a number of consumer laws. One that's related to the Second Amendment and gun purchases, which is that you have to be 21 to purchase ammunition at retail stores and through mail order. So that's a big one.
Yep.
But another really significant one that I think is really going to help homeowners as we come into wildfire season is the regulation of insurance companies that provide wildlife risk assessments. So these companies that say, hey, here they do a risk score and they say you're in this kind of area, you have a lot of dry brush, that kind of thing, and they assess premiums from that. Well, now the legislature passed a law that requires the insurance companies to say, here's the factors that we used. You can appeal that for 30 days. So, and the point behind this is to try and reduce those insurance premiums for mitigation efforts. So if you cut down some dry brush around your house or whatever, they can reduce those premiums. So that one I think is really significant because we've seen these wildfires and people have had just a heck of a time trying to get insurance paid and those kind of things. So hopefully this helps with that.
This part is weird to me, and this is where we're going to really tap into your legal expertise, I think, because, well, listen, some of these laws I know were passed months ago, some even years ago, but they didn't go into effect until yesterday. So why is it that sometimes a law takes so long to go into effect, even though it's been passed, way back when?
Right, that's a great point. And what we're talking about here is statutory laws. So these are laws that are passed by a legislative body. So the Colorado legislature passes a statute and it becomes codified, and that's a law that people have to follow. Well, that's one of the reasons they give you time to actually implement that. So particularly, there were a lot of laws this year related to employers. And so in order to they want to set people up for success. So for the employer to actually comply with these laws, they have to understand what it is. They have to maybe implement new systems. So really the legislature is trying to give people an opportunity to actually comply. And a lot of times it may be complex. It may be, especially when you're dealing with payroll and things like that, you have to update your systems, change your systems. So they just want to set people up for success.
To me, the weird one was, and I know it was passed a long time ago, you're not allowed to bring a dinosaur into a grocery store. And I thought it's weird that
I didn't hear that one. I'm not familiar with that.
I'm messing with you. How about, before we let you go, underlying theme, maybe something that kind of just an overarching theme to these new laws that went into effect yesterday?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I noticed that was really interesting was because of the advance of technology and other things, the legislatures are dealing with things they wouldn't have dealt with certainly a generation ago, but even a few years ago. And so, for example, the 3D printing of firearms, that's obviously a new technology, and so that's completely regulated. There's new consumer protections for EV charging stations. That's also a new developing area. The AI laws, and then, of course, regulation of retail marijuana. And that's obviously, we've had marijuana for some time, but these are all things that you couldn't anticipate. And it really goes back to some of the arguments when you're looking at strict constitutionalists and originalists and things like that, when they're saying, hey, we want to go back to the beginning when some of these technological ideas weren't even ideas, obviously. So it's interesting to see how the law is trying to keep up with technology.
Always appreciate your expertise, Whitney.